back to the video tutorial series of the operating system. I am your instructor Varshata. Let's start our lecture series. So topics to be covered in today's lecture, that is shortest job first. Okay, in last lecture we have covered about the FCFS algorithm. So today we will see the shortest job first scheduling algorithm. In this algorithm there are two types of it. One is a non-preemptive SJF and another is a preemptive SJF. Now what is the meaning of non-preemptive and preemptive? Non-preemptive, that means what? Once the CPU will be assigned to the any process until and unless that process will not complete its executions, we will not preempt the CPU from that process. So that is known as the non-preemptive SJF. And another is a preemptive SJF. That means what? Once the CPU is assigned to the any process, or if the time slice expired, or if any lower burst time process comes, then the higher burst time process will be preempted from the CPU and the lower burst time process will be assigned to the CPU. Okay, so that is the known as the preemptive SJF. Okay, so let's start with this. So first of all, in a non-preemptive SJF, what will be the selection criteria for this? Okay, so the selection criteria for this, the process that required the shortest time to complete the executions, it will serve first. Okay, in FCFS, we have defined the first come process will serve first. But here, the process that required the shortest time will serve first. Okay. Then next decision mode, that is based on the non-preemptive. Okay, because once the process is selected, it runs until either it's blocked for an input output or some other event is terminated. Or it is terminated. Okay, so basically there are three ways when the process will be preempted. Once it completes its execution, or otherwise it is blocked for any input output device. For example, printer is not ready, or any other event occur, any other interrupt occur. So because of this reason the process will be preempted, otherwise it will be non-preempted. Okay, now implementation. This strategy can be easily implemented using the FIFO queue, that is first in first out. All of you know about this FIFO queue because you have learned this thing in the data structure. So same data structure will be used to implement the SJF scheduling. All the processes in the queue are sorted in the ascending order, that is based on the CPU burst time. Okay, when the CPU becomes free, a process from the first position in a queue is selected to run. Okay, when the process arrives, all the processes will be sorted in the ascending order according to the burst time. And when it is required to selection of the process, when CPU completes its executions for any process, at that time first process from that particular queue, CPU will choose for the execution. Now let's see the example for this. So here consider the same table, that same example that we have considered in the FCFS algorithm. Process P0 to P3 is there. Arrival time is given for each and every process, and CPU burst time is given. Okay, so now first of all, whenever you are going to solve any type of such example, you should have to define the timeline chart. And that is compulsory because using the timeline chart you have the much more information to define the waiting time, to define the finish time, and to define the turnaround time. So first of all, let's start with the 0 for this timeline chart. Here process P0 arrived at the time 0. Now at the time 0, no any other process is there. Okay, so what we will do, we will assign this particular process for the CPU utilizations. Okay, so P0 will go for the execution now at the time 1. Other process P1 come with the less burst time, that is 6, but still we are not able to preempt the CPU from the process P0 because we are following the non-preemptive SJF. That's why. Okay, so for the P0 process, for the 10 milliseconds time, the CPU will be utilized with process P0. Now, next process P2 will be go for the execution. Why? Because for the timeline 0 to 10, each and every process arrived, that you can see the arrival time for process P1 is a 1, P2 is a 3, and P3 is a 5. So when P0 will complete its execution, you can see over here all the processes are arrived. So now from P1, P2 and P3 you have to see that which process has the smallest burst time. So here you can see the P2 process has the smallest burst time, that is 2. So that's why we will assign the P2 process for the execution. So here you can see the P2 process will go for the execution. So 12. After that, the P3 process will go for the execution. Why? Because P3 process has the smallest burst time in between 6 and 4. Okay, so 6 is for P1 and 4 is for P3. So first P3 will go for the execution. So now P3 will go for the execution, and after that P1 will go for the execution. Okay, so this is what timeline chart for the shortest job first using the non-preemptive algorithm. Now what you have to find out? Okay, again same chart and same this timeline chart is given to you. Now let's find out the finish time for each and every process. So from the timeline chart you are able to easily find out what is the finish time for each and every process. So for the P0 from timeline chart you can see the for P0 the finish time is a 10. Okay, now for P1 the finish time is a 22, that you can see. Okay, so like this way you have to write the finish time for each and every process. So for P2 it is a 12 and for P3 it is a 16. Now what you have to find out? You have to find out the turnaround time for each and every process. So what you have to do? You have to subtract arrival time from the finish time. So you will get the turnaround time for each and every process. Now find out the turnaround time for process P0. So it is a 10 only. Why? Because its finish time is 10 and its arrival time is 0. So at the time when the process comes, immediately the process is assigned for the CPU. Okay, so now here for the process P1, the finish time is a 21 because it's when the process completes its execution, total time is 22. But process arrive at the 1 millisecond, so you have to subtract that 1. Same way for P2, it is 9. And for P3, it is 11. Got it? Now next is the waiting time. So how to define the waiting time? So waiting time for each and every process. How to define the waiting time? You have to minus the arrival time. Sorry, you have to minus the burst time from the turnaround time. So you will get the waiting time for each and every process. So here you can see the turnaround time for the process P0, that is 10. And the burst time for the process P0, that is again 10. So what will be the waiting time for the process? That is 0. Okay. Now same way for the process P2. What is the turnaround time? So it is a 21. Now what is its burst time? It is 6. So you have to minus this 6 from the 22. So you will get the answer 15. So like this way you will get the answer 7 and 7 for P3 and P4 process. Now what you have to define? So here you have to find out the average turnaround time for each and every process. So average turnaround time, here you can see how to find out. You have to just define the average for each and every turnaround time, and numbers of processes are there. So here you can find out the 12.75 millisecond is the average turnaround time for each and every process. Now, for the average waiting time, again you have to calculate average waiting time by summation of waiting time of each and every process, and then you have to divide by 4. So you will get the answer, that is 7.25 millisecond. Now, what is the advantages of this? So advantages is that less waiting time, okay, good response for short processes, and SJF is basically used for long-term scheduler, okay, and the average waiting time of shortage of first is less than the FCFS. Okay, so if you compare this with the FCFS, the average waiting time is less. Now, what is the disadvantage? In SJF, process compilations times need to be known earlier. Okay, so you should know the execution time of each and every process in advance. So it is not every time possible that this process will require this much time for the execution. So that is the disadvantage, that everything you know in prior. Then starvation is possible for the long process. For example, any process is that is of the 100 milliseconds, and newly arrived process have the lowest burst time. So every time that longer process have to swapped out. Okay, so that will be the disadvantage for the longer process. Now next is a preemptive SJF. So what is the preemptive SJF? As we have discussed till now, non-preemptive SJF, that means we will not preempt the CPU from the process. But in preemptive SJF, we will preempt the CPU from the process. So selection criteria is what? The process whose remaining runtime is the shortest is served first. Same way. But this is the preemptive version of the SJF scheduling. Okay, and decision mode, that is based on the preemptive. Okay, so when the new process arrives, its total time is compared to the current process remaining running time. For example, in our example, P0 requires the 10 milliseconds for the execution, and the newly arrived process, I think P2, required the 6 milliseconds for the executions. So at the same time, P0 is in execution, we have to preempt this process, and we have to assign the P1 process for the execution as its burst time is less. That's why. Okay, so this is the decision mode for the preemptive SJF. Now implementation, again this is implemented using the FIFO queue. Okay, first in first out. All processes in the queue are sorted in the ascending order and their CPU runtime. Okay, so when CPU becomes free, a process from the first position will be selected for the executions. Okay, and this algorithm is also known as the shortest remaining time first and shortest remaining time next. So in exam, it may be asked like that explain the SRTF or SRTN. So you should have to explain this preemptive SJF. Got it? Okay, so now let's see the example for this. So here let's consider the same example that we have taken till now. Okay, same table is there, same processes are there, same arrival time and same burst time. Now let's see the timeline chart for this. So here first of all, from the 0 start P0. Okay, so here for P0 you can see here for P0 for 1 millisecond we will assign it for the CPU utilization. Why? Because when at the time 0 no any process is there, but when time passed to 1 milliseconds, another process will come, that is a process P1, and its burst time is 6. Now P0's remaining burst time is 9 because 1 second execution is complete now. So from this compare which one is the smallest burst time. So that is a 6. So now what you have to do? You have to preempt the P0 and you have to assign the P1 for the executions. So what will happen? That P1 will be assigned. Now when the P1 is there in the execution, so after 1 milliseconds, okay, again another process comes for the executions, that is what? Process P2. So P2 requires the 2 milliseconds for the execution. P0 is that required the 9 millisecond execution, but its burst time is more, so we will not assign it. And P1 has the remaining burst time, that is 4. But now that P2, that is newly arrived process, has the burst time, that is 2. So what you will do? You will assign this P2 process for the execution and you will preempt the process P1 from the execution. So let's see. Okay, so here the P2 will be assigned. Now P2 has complete its execution because it has the burst time just 2. So now what will happen? And when it completes its burst time, its execution, another process comes, that is P3 process. Okay, so here you can see the P0 has the remaining burst time 9. P1 has the remaining burst time, that is 4, and P3 has the remaining burst time, that is again 4. So what will happen? Now P1 and P3 has the same burst time. So again, when the same burst time is there, you have to follow the first come first rule. So here P1 will go for the execution. So here P1 will go for the execution, and after that P3 will go for the executions that again require the time 4 for the execution. Okay, and after that P0 will go for the execution that required 9 time for the execution, and here we complete our timeline chart. Got it? How preemptive scheduling work? So now here same table is there and here the timeline chart is there. Now what you have to find out? The finish time for each and every process. So finish time for the P0. So how you are able to find out the finish time for the P0, that is 22. After the completion of the process P0's execution, the time that is denoted over here in the timeline chart, that you have write in the finish time. Now the finish time for the process P1, for the P1, that is 9, and for the P2, that is 5. Using the timeline chart you can write this, and for the P3 it is 13. Got it? So this is what the finish time. Now what you have to find out? The turnaround time for each and every process. So turnaround time, that is what? The finish time minus the arrival time. So its finish time is 22 and its arrival time is a 0. So what is the total turnaround time? Is a 22. Okay, then for the process P1, again its finish time is 9 and its arrival time is 1. So subtract the arrival time from the finish time, you will get the turnaround time. Same way for the process P2, you will get the 2 because its arrival time is 3. So 5 minus 3, that is 2. And for the process P3, it is 8 because 13 minus 5, it is 8. Now let's find out the average waiting time. So for waiting time, you have to subtract this burst time from the turnaround time, so you will get the waiting time. So here you can see for the process P0 it is 12. Why? Because its total turnaround time is a 22 and its burst time is a 10. So total 12 milliseconds process has wait. Same way for the process P1 it is 2, for the process P2 it is 0, and process P3 it is 4. Why for process P2 it is 0? Because when the process comes at the time, at the arrival time of the 3, immediately it assigns for the executions. So there is no any waiting time for the process P2. Now again find out the average turnaround time and average waiting time. So when you will calculate, you will get the answer 10 milliseconds and 4.5 milliseconds. So now what are the advantage and disadvantage of this? Less waiting time and quite good response for the short processes. Okay, so advantage is what? Less waiting time for short processes. Then disadvantage is what? Again, it is difficult to estimate the remaining time necessary to complete the execution. Same disadvantage that we have in the non-preemptive SJF, same disadvantages over here, because it is not possible to every time define how much time the process will require for the execution. Then again, the starvation is possible for the longer process because every time the longer process will be preempted. Then context switch overhead is there, because every time when any shortest process is come, so every time the longer process have to switch out. Okay, so context switch will be more in this. So summary of this lecture, we have learned about the two shortest job first algorithm. One is a non-preemptive SJF and another is a preemptive SJF. In non-preemptive SJF, we will select the smallest burst time process for the execution, and we will not preempt the CPU until and unless the process completes its executions. And in preemptive SJF, if any smallest burst time process comes and if any longer burst time process is there in the execution, we will preempt the process and we will again assign that smallest burst time process for the execution. Okay, so this is all about this lecture. Remaining topic we will cover in the next lecture. Thank you for watching. We will meet in the next lecture. Thank you.